Hey everybody, I'm Mickey Gousset, and welcome to another unscripted video. So over the past couple of days, I've made a couple of shorts around a new announcement that we just made around GitHub Actions, which is the ability to block certain versions of actions, as well as the ability to require that you pin your actions to a commit SHA, which currently is the most secure way of referencing an action. But I wanted to make a little bit longer video just to explain it as well. So first thing I want to do is we'll pop over here and I'll link this down in the description of the video, but this is the blog post or the changelog post that we put out. Now the one thing you should also be aware of is if you want to know what's happening, the latest and greatest that's been released from GitHub, you should be going to github.blog/changelog and reading that daily, because we're pretty much outputting stuff daily. The other thing I want to point out, by the way, is if you've watched my past few shorts, Milo does move off of the back of the couch, but right now that tends to be his favorite place to look out the window. So this changelog goes into the details of what this actual change is and the reasons why we made this change. So there's two things I'm going to show you. One is how to block specific actions or specific versions of actions. And why might you want to do this? Let's say a vulnerability is introduced in a specific version of an action. Right now, currently, you'd have to go search all your GitHub action workflows to find where that action is used and change it or remove it. With the blocking capability now, we can just block it, and any workflow that's using that vulnerable action will not be able to run until a change is made to it. The other thing we can do now also is enforce the SHA pinning on an action. Right now on an action, there's 3 ways you can specify a version. You can use a tag. Tags right now, though, are not immutable, so somebody could move the tag around and you're not aware of it. It's to use a branch, but branches, while that's good for developing actions, isn't necessarily what you want to use for production. And then there's pinning it to a specific commit SHA, which means you know the exact code you're going to be getting when you use that action. And that's considered a best practice. So I'm going to show you how to implement the enforcing of a SHA as well as the blocking of a specific action. Just so you know, we have this thing out here called the GitHub Well-Architected Framework. And all of these best practice policies here that we're recommending are in this Well-Architected Framework document. And this document has a ton of information about the best ways to set up, configure, and run your GitHub enterprise. So if you've not read the Well-Architected Framework, I'll provide a link to it in the description below as well. But it's a free resource out there with a lot of good information for you. So given that, let's go actually see how we implement this. So I have my standard GitHub Action repository here. Of course, it is public. It is in the DevOps Elvis repo that we're always using. And if I go to my workflow section, then we can see that I do have just a very basic workflow here that is using checkout v3 and then just doing some stuff. And right now I'm executing this with a workflow dispatch. So I can come over here to actions. I can select my workflow and we can run this workflow. And we'll give that just a minute. It won't take very long to run. And we've got no blocking or anything set up right now, so the workflow just executes successfully. Now, let's say we hear that the actions checkout v3 is having a problem, or it's got a vulnerability. It doesn't, but let's say we heard that, and we want to make sure we block this action from being used. So you can block this at the enterprise level, at the organization level, or at the repository level. So I'm just going to do it at the repo level, but know that you could do it at the other 2 levels as well. So if I go to settings for this repo, and I go to actions, general, then, and this is the same view you'll see at the enterprise and org level, you can control the permissions that are allowed. So you can allow actions, you can disable actions, you can only allow internal actions. This one's allowing actions and reusable workflows from anywhere on the internet. Or there's this box, which allows you to use any actions in your enterprise and the actions that you specify from the internet. So it used to be just an allow list. But what we want to do is not just use this as an allow list, but now we have the ability to use an exclamation point to block actions that we want to make sure aren't being used. In this case, in the repository, or like I said, the organization or the enterprise. So I can come in here and I can say actions/checkout at v3. And if I put an exclamation mark in front of it, then that's going to block that action. I do get a little warning here. Your list only contains blocked patterns. So it's suggesting, using some wildcards. I'm not worried about that. I am going to save this. And now if we come back over here to actions and we select our workflow, and we go to run the workflow, you can see the workflow immediately failed. And if we go into why it failed because the action checkout is not allowed in our policy controls. Because all actions must either be from owned by your enterprise and can't match that pattern. So the workflow doesn't even start. It just, when you try to run it, it fails. And then you can come in and you can see, oh, look, it failed. So that's how you can block actions using the allow list. So now it's an allow/deny list, depending on whether you put that exclamation point in front of it. Now, the other best practice that we want to implement, though, is the ability to require that actions be tied to an actual commit SHA. So if I take that out, and then you'll see I have this little checkbox here. Require actions to be pinned to a full-length commit SHA. So I'm going to click OK and click Save. Well, I'm going to allow actions from GitHub. So that's going to allow through that actions, the checkout action that we're trying to use. But I'm going to also require it to be pinned to a full-length commit SHA. So I'm going to click Save. Specified actions can't be blank. That's interesting. It must have gotten confused because it saved all my changes. Weird, I'll have to come back and play with that. But now if I go back to the Actions tab and I select my block actions using policy controls and I try to run it, again, it doesn't even run. And if we go into it, we can see that this action is not allowed to run because it has to be pinned to a full-length commit SHA. So how do we pin it to a full-length commit SHA? Well, let's go out to the github.com/actions/checkout repository. And let's go over to releases. And let's look for V3. Oh, V3. We just want straight up V3, nothing else. So let's see if we can find that pretty easily. All right, I'm missing it. So let's see what I'm missing. Tags. That's what we want. There we go. This will work. V3. So this is the full-length commit SHA for V3. So what I can do is take that commit SHA. I can go back over here to my code, go into the workflow file, edit this, And instead of saying v3 here, I'll put the actual commit SHA, and then it's best practice to put in a comment out beside it what version that commit SHA is tied to. You can actually see that back over here in the well-architected framework. If you scroll down and look a little bit where it talks about pinning actions, it recommends putting that little comment there so you can keep track of what version you're using. But now, since I've pinned this action now to that specific commit, I'm going to commit these changes. Pinned action to a commit. And I'm going to just push this directly to the main branch because I like to live dangerously. And now if we come back over here to actions and we select our workflow and we say run workflow, now we're going to see that the workflow is going to kick off and run because we have pinned it to a commit SHA. So what have we learned at the end of the day? We've learned that we can now use the allow list, which has been there for a long time, to also block specific actions, which is a great thing to do if we find out a specific action has some vulnerability against it. And we've also learned how to enforce pinning of the commit SHAs to the versions of the actions that you're going to use to ensure that we are using the specific commit that we care about, and we're forcing everyone to use commit SHA pinning. So what do you think? Think this is going to help you? Is this something, were you already doing the commit SHA pinning? Are you going to start looking at blocking actions? Let me know what you think about this functionality. Please leave a comment below. And if you liked this video or got something out of it, please actually like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share my content so it can get out to more and more people. Thanks for watching.